Welcome to Tea
and E
with the T. I'm your host, Teresa.
I'm your co-host, Edwin.
And today we're talking about part 2 of Ruby Franke. She was known as the best mother in the world, but then became the worst mother in the universe. Viewer and listener discretion is advised. This episode contains discussion of sensitive topics that may be distressing for some audiences. Please take care while listening, and if these topics are triggering for you, we encourage you to prioritize your well-being. We kind of already talked about Ruby Franke and who she was and her background and her family's background. So we're going to pick up off on all of that, right? So we kind of touched bases on her YouTube channel, how she started the 8 Passengers, and how it became from something that was, seen as a beautiful family. But at the very end, she started showing signs that were not okay, right? She started abusing her kids in a way that people didn't, or not abuse her kids at that moment, but from what people would see in the videos, what she would post on YouTube, it kind of seemed more of like her discipline was just too harsh for kids that were just so young. And it was just a lot for the audience to see. And they were starting to kind of disrespect her in a way. So we're going to pick off on the YouTube channel and how it got from that. It wasn't as extreme as where it's going to get to in this part 2, right? So in part 2, we're going to talk about the aftermath of her YouTube channel when she got canceled, and to now her being arrested, being sentenced to 6 to 30 years in prison.
Wow.
Right?
With parole?
Her and Jodi Hildebrandt. Okay? So we're going to talk a little bit more about Jodi Hildebrandt and who she is and how she helped Ruby Franke basically do all of this heinous crime and just horrible things that she did to her 2 younger kids and why they're both arrested to this day. Okay?
Wow.
So we're going to get into it. There's a scene that kind of comes to my head that kind of tells you a little bit of what went down with Ruby Franke. She was filming with Chad, who was one of the oldest kids. You remember how Chad and Sherry are the only ones that we're going to talk about out of her 6 kids.
Yeah.
So he's one of the oldest kids. He's the second oldest. And he was filming with her. And he admits that he's been sleeping on a beanbag for 7 months on camera, right?
Dang.
My bedroom was taken away for 7 months, and then you give it back like a couple weeks ago.
I don't think our viewers know that.
You've been sleeping on a beanbag.
I've been sleeping on a beanbag since October, and they gave my room back like 2 weeks ago.
So they're just having a conversation, and all of a sudden, Chad was like, oh yeah, he's like, I haven't had my room for 7 months. I've been sleeping on a beanbag for all this time. And Ruby starts laughing and she goes, oh, I don't think our fans know that yet. And she kind of seems nervous, but she's like, oh, it's like whatever. I mean, it doesn't seem like it's that bad, right? So because she always wanted to paint the picture or paint her videos as perfect as possible, right? So to her, that moment was not so bad to her because that's like her disciplining her kids. So she goes, well, why don't you tell them like why you got your bedroom taken away? And he goes, well, it was because my younger sibling, his younger brother, he basically pranked him. All he said was, hey, wake up, we're going to Disney. And he like got up so quick and started packing his bag. He said, okay, let's go. And it was a joke, obviously. That's why she took his bedroom.
Oh, heck no.
For 7 months.
7 months?
Yes. And he's like laughing while he's telling the story, right? Because because it was a prank, right?
Yeah.
So he's laughing. He's like, at the moment, it was kind of sad because I got in trouble. But right now, like, it just seems funny. And she goes, well, if you think it's funny, clearly your discipline did not work. So that means that we're going to have to take your bedroom for more than 7 months. And he had just got it within that moment that they were talking and that video had came out. He had just got it like 2 weeks ago. He had just got his bedroom back.
I'll give you the reason why I lost my bedroom. I think so. I think this is the reason. At least this is the reason that's been in my head. It's pretty funny, but now that I look back, I mean, it's pretty depressing.
No, we never told our viewers.
That I woke Russell up at 2 in the morning and told him that we're going to Disneyland and he has to pack. And he got up and made his bed all neatly and then packed all his clothes in a suitcase. And then he walked out the door and I'm like, Russell, he was like, what? And he's all happy. Has his sunglasses on.
Do you think it's funny? Because
and then I walk out.
If you think it's funny, then that was 7 months ago. Maybe you need longer without a bedroom.
It was not funny.
So that's the video. That's the scene that I wanted to paint. And that clip is what got her canceled. Everybody started commenting and tweeting out, because at the time it was like Twitter was really big. So it was like around 2019 or 2018 is when she posted this video, right? And at that time, she already has millions of subscribers. Millions of subscribers. I think about 5. I don't know. I'm not 100% sure how many subscribers she had at that point.
Yeah.
But she had a lot. And she was already very big. And so everybody knew about them. And so now they thought she was this perfect mother. And now they find out that she took away her kid's bedroom and he's been sleeping in a beanbag for 7 months. So they're like, okay, well, you're not as good as a mother as we thought you were. We don't support that. Like, they just started saying so many things about her. And this drove her crazy. Because if you remember in part 1, her motive of being a mother and doing this YouTube channel, well, being a mother, first off, was she wanted to be the best mom.
Mm-hmm.
She wanted to basically be able to make her own rules and to be able to basically kind of quote unquote control them. So, but on YouTube, she wanted to be known as the best mother. She wanted everybody to praise her. She wanted everybody to know that she was the best. And now it's the opposite. Now people are saying, you're the worst mom. On TikTok, people were saying that, you're the worst mom. Like, why would you ever do that? Like, you went from the best mom to the worst mom in the world. Like, you're a horrible human being. Why would you let your son sleep in a beanbag? Like, they just went off on her.
The internet has no mercy.
No. So she decided to get attorneys, a couple of attorneys, to help her with that, because now she's being canceled and now her subscribers are starting to go down. So her viewing is not doing good anymore. So after all of that controversy started, she started basically so let me go back actually. So that day that she found out that she was canceled, right? She saw all the comments, she saw the things. She went to Chad and she was like, this is word from word, because this is what Chad said in the documentary on Hulu, because I watched it. He basically talks about this scene and this little situation that they went through, the controversy. And he talks about when that day that she found out that, Ruby found out that, the cancellation and how, the controversies of her being the worst mom ever. Well, she runs into Chad's room. She said to him when she ran into the room, "You bitch, you did this on purpose. You know what you did. You knew what you were saying." That's what she said to her son, Chad. And he was like, "No, I didn't know. Like, I did not do that on purpose." He's like, "I genuinely did not do that on purpose." Because before, he would do things to kind of basically go against his mom.
Yeah.
But he started becoming like this person that was just not, he didn't want to do that. Like, he loved his mom and he was like, "No, Mom, I didn't do that. I didn't do that. I didn't do it on purpose. I was literally just talking and just having a conversation with you. It was not my intention."
And she tried to egg it on, so it technically was her fault, because she was
Yeah.
like, "Chad, do you want to tell them why you're sleeping on a beanbag for the last couple of months?"
But it's because, like I said, she thought that it was like a good discipline. Like, she was being a good mom. Like, she was disciplining her kids. That's crazy.
Nah, she can't own up to her own mistakes.
Right? So, yeah. So, like I said, she ended up hiring so many lawyers or high-end lawyers to help her with this situation. And they ended up telling her, hey, why don't you just put out a apology video? Apologize to your subscribers and apologize for the things that you've been doing to your kids, or at least shown what you did to your kids. And she goes, I would never apologize for that.
I know it.
She
People
said,
that don't apologize, I'm like,
yeah, no. That to me was crazy that she said that. I was like, why would you not apologize? Like, you're trying to save your channel and you just don't want to do anything. Like, I don't know. At that point, if I was trying to save my channel and I was losing subscribers for what I did, I'd be like, I'm sorry.
that's a
You
big
know,
old
that was
ego.
on.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
you not to want to do that, this have big ego.
She did not want to. She was like, no, I'm not apologizing. I'm not doing any of that. Like, I am not sorry for what I did for my kids. They deserve to be disciplined for whatever they do. And that was a reason for him to get disciplined in her eyes, right? So yeah, so she was like, no. So then she ended up turning her whole life around, right? So she became like this. At first, her YouTube channel was very fun, was very like exciting. Like, she would be with her kids and they would be going out to like Disney World or stuff like that, right? And eventually, when that happened, she turned her whole life around. So she became like basically a very religious person on camera. Like, she was in the attire that, like, no skin showing. She would be recording her kids, basically teaching them like school or like anything about religion. Just, it was more peaceful than it was happy and exciting and fun than the last videos. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it was just very calm. It was just, nothing was exciting about it. They were just sitting down. It was very proper. She would be talking about God, and that's how it changed. Literally a 360. Yeah, 360 of her personality on camera.
She became very religious.
Yes. So this is where this is where Jodi Hildebrandt comes in the picture. More so than what she was already in the picture, right? So Jodi was basically a psychologist, quote unquote. That's what she stated herself, as a psychologist. We're going to get into who she was and her background, but I do want to start with this. So Jodi was referred to Ruby by a friend. So this friend, she goes to these basically like conferences. It's called Connections. What Jodi kind of is involved, and she's not involved, but this is her thing. Like, she's the one that speaks in these groups or in these conferences, right? And they're called Connections. But like I said, Ruby was referred to Jodi by a friend, right? And so the reason why Ruby was referred to Jodi by a friend was because in Disney World, this one time during, their YouTube channel, this is before they were canceled, right? Chad had gotten in trouble because for some reason he was not listening, and Ruby was like, okay, well, you're not going to go to Disney with us. You're going to stay in the hotel. So he made him stay in the hotel. And he was a big rebel. He was like, no, I'm not staying in a hotel.
I
So
could
he
tell
got out.
why.
Yeah. So he got out and he took a taxi and
How
he
old is
went
he?
to Disney. Now, around that time, he was about 11.
He got a taxi at 11 and
Yes.
went to Disney?
Yes.
What
That's what it
of
stated.
Home Alone.
Yes. So that's what it stated, but I'm assuming it's just because like all of like Ruby made her kids very independent.
Yeah.
And Chad would do anything and everything to rebel and to, go against his mom.
I mean,
So,
if I can, you got to keep in mind, if you do these kind of things and you do them out of hate and not out of love, and not show them love and show them why you're disciplining them the way you're disciplining them, they're going to interpret that as hate.
Yeah.
And they're going to have rencor in their heart.
Right.
And then they're going to grow that hate towards the person that's, disciplining them or making them feel sad or making them feel mad. Of course, that's obvious. You know what I mean?
Exactly, and that's
I
why
can see
Chad.
why he's rebelling.
And that's why Chad in the beginning, he said, he's like, I hated my mom. I hated my mom because all she did was she just wanted to be on camera, and I did not want to be on camera, and then she would discipline us and all this stuff, right?
Yeah.
So he ended up getting a taxi. He went to Disney. He was like, okay, well, if you don't want to take me, I'll take myself. So he went to Disney. How did he get in? I don't know. He got in, and they had closed Disney for them specifically. So maybe like they already knew, like
they knew him.
So
in the
they probably
videos and
already
stuff.
knew. So they were like, okay, yeah.
He probably
So-
was on like, they forgot,
Yeah. So he ended up going to Disney, and Ruby found out. Ruby found out that Chad ended up leaving the hotel and getting to Disney on his own. And Ruby got so upset, and that's when that friend on that trip told Ruby about Jodi. Okay? And she said the friend was like, "Oh, Jodi can help, Chad. She can help you, Ruby, on learning how to discipline your kids and how to have him listen and how to have him be a good child," right? Because of the things that she would talk about in her conferences or the connections group, right? So now let me talk about a little bit about Jodi. She was known as a speaker at life coaching program connections workshops. She was basically a very good therapist, quote unquote. A lot of people praised her when they would go to these conferences or when they would go to these workshops, they would be like, "Oh my God, Jodi knows everything. Like, Jodi is an amazing person. She knows how to talk to people. She knows the way to live life," basically, right? So they really praised her. She was a licensed clinical mental health counselor. She was also known as a miracle worker, quote unquote, right? Like I said, she had this group or program called Connections, and she had promised people to help with porn addiction, disordered thinking, and a lot of people was like, okay, yeah, I mean, like, there's a lot, like, she knows what she's talking about. She praised her 3 main philosophy principles. So these were her three core main principles that she would always praise to people during these programs or this workshop. Impeccable honesty, rigorous personal responsibility, and vulnerable humility. Those were her 3 main core principles during these workshops.
Yeah.
So, like, immediately, as soon as this friend of Ruby told her about all of this, Ruby was like, okay, yeah, this immediately, like, I want to set up a phone call or a Zoom call with her. Yeah. So she's like, let's set up a Zoom call with her, Chad, and my husband, Kevin. So they ended up scheduling the Zoom call, and it was so crazy because the first day that Chad met with Jodi, to me it was just very weird and crazy, and this kind of shows how crazy this woman is, and you will see how intense it gets with her. But anyways, she's able to easily manipulate people.
Yeah.
She knows how to talk to people. She knows what to say to manipulate them. And it shows later on in the story. But the first day that Chad met Jodi, he talks about this in the documentary. And he says it was really creepy. But basically, he was in the middle, right? He was in the middle between his mom, Ruby. His mom, Ruby, was on his left side. And his dad, Kevin, was on the right side. And they turn on the computer. He opens the computer. They have the Zoom call. They click the link and they open it. And the first thing he sees is, Jodi's face pop up, right? And she's like, hi, like, how are you, Chad? How's it going? All this stuff, right? And she asked Chad, are you ready for, to basically change your lifestyle? And Chad goes, absolutely, I'm ready. Like, he was like, I'm excited. He thought, if I paint myself as like this really good kid, she's not gonna be like, she's gonna be like, oh, there's nothing wrong with him, it's fine, like, we don't have to do these, like, he doesn't need help. So he's like, that's what I'm gonna do, right?
He sounds like Edwin. He sounds like little kid Edwin.
Yeah, so he tries, he's very rebellious, but he tries to paint himself as like a good kid so that he don't have to do these things, right? And so that she can be like, okay, no, he don't need it. So as soon as he's like, okay, yeah, absolutely, I'm ready, blah, 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 Jodi looks at him and she goes, Chad, you're lying to me. And Chad is like, oh, shoot, how does she know? So then that's when Ruby and Kevin, his two parents, look at each other, and Ruby gets a smile on her face. Why? Because she knows that with Jodi, there's nothing that's going to go past her. She's going to stay there. And this was
recorded?
This was not recorded. This was on a Zoom call. So Chad talks about this moment.
Okay.
Yeah, Chad talks about this moment specifically, and that he remembers that. And that was a day that he knew Jodi was not going to take any of his crap, and Jodi was going to state it in his face.
That's funny.
Yeah. So that day, Jodi told his parents about him going to basically a program where they go and have him go in the wilderness and learn how to be like, what is the word, like, kind of like a what is it called, like a no, what are the boys that come to the door? Boy Scout. So it's kind of like a Boy Scout program, but he goes for a few weeks and it's like a restart. Jodi tells his parents about this program, and they're like, yeah, like, that definitely, I think that's a really good idea. Maybe it can restart his mindset and all this stuff, right? So after that, she told them about that, they ended up having like weekly calls. So it went from once a week to then twice a week. So it became this thing that was constantly, it was a thing that they did for Chad to be a good person. So he ended up going to this program for those weeks, and they recorded it. Ruby and Kevin, they recorded it on their YouTube channel, and they stated that, Chad was going to be gone for a few weeks to this program, and that he was just, it was just for his well-being, and that he just needed to, learn how to become a man and mature and all this stuff, right? So he comes back, and after he comes back, he seems like different. So he ended up listening to Jodi. He ended up caring for Jodi. He ended up like developing some form of love for Jodi, like if it was his second mom.
Mm-hmm.
So he can continue with these weekly calls. This was twice a week now. And like I said, Chad liked Jodi at this point. That's very important, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Keep that in mind. So now, we're going to go back to where Ruby is now the worst mom in the world, right? So Kevin didn't know what was going on with his family, so he says. So he didn't understand why everybody was now painting Ruby as the worst mom.
Who?
Kevin. Okay. Kevin is the husband. Yes. So it was just, to me, really weird. But the reason why I say it's really weird is because he was there off camera. Like, he saw the things off camera. And the things off camera that we didn't see as an audience, what we saw was mostly her just, yelling at the kids, or like, stating that their beds were taken away or their rooms were taken away, like Chad in the situation. But it was never like, we never saw anything more than
deeper than that.
Yeah.
When the cameras were off.
Yes. So when the cameras were off, they were worse. I don't know where they got these clips, or where they got the clips where they were cut off from the YouTube videos, but the documentary shows little clips of Ruby kind of yelling at the kids, yanking the kids away. Like, there was this one video that I saw that I was like, what the heck? It was on the documentary, but one of the little girls are on the table and she like pulls her off. She's like, move
her down on the flipping couch. Okay, move it. Fake being happy. Okay? I don't know if I can right now.
and she like yelling at them, and she's just saying like, like there's some form of discipline that I feel like you should use on your kids, but when it comes to that extreme, I feel like it was just too much, in my opinion. But yeah, so that was shown on the documentary, but Chad does talk about a little bit in the documentary as well of what happened off camera. And the fact that Kevin was like, I didn't know what was going on with my family. Like, you don't know what your wife is doing? You don't know how your wife is treating your kids? But it kind of goes back to
And he was
what...
a stay-at-home dad too, right?
No, he worked.
Oh, he worked?
Yeah.
So he didn't see all of it, I guess, then, right?
No, but I mean, he lived with them. Like, at the end of the day, you still live with your family. You still know what goes on. I'm pretty sure it was not just all when he was gone.
Yeah.
You know? So to me, it just throws me off. And then also the fact that it kind of goes back to, what we talked about in part 1 when he said that he would do anything to save his marriage.
Mm-hmm.
He would do anything. Like, he was just like this guy that would just let people basically push him around and he would not say anything. Like, he was that type of man, and it shows. And because it seemed like Ruby was just taking over Kevin and manipulating him and just making him think that these things were okay, right? And he loved Ruby so much, so he was just like, no, Ruby is a good woman. She's a good wife. She's a good mom. Like, there's no way that she is the worst mom in the world, right? So, that to me just threw me off. But basically, Chad talked about the things that they went through off camera. They were spanked. They were whipped.
Whipped?
Yes. And at times, their pants were pulled down and hit on the butt with the belt.
Oh, okay. I think those are normal, right?
They're not normal, but us Hispanics experience it a lot. Well, at least for me. But
I mean, I would spank myself for the things that I did.
yeah, but I mean, there's a point. There's a limit.
There's better ways now, I guess.
Yes.
It's more difficult, but yeah, there's better ways.
But I think in this story, Chad got it the most at this point. Now, we're going to talk about the younger kids and what happened to them later on, but at this point, Chad got it the most, but because he always went against his mom. So, Sherry in the documentary talks about also, the things off camera. And she was just always there for her siblings, mostly for Chad, because Chad was the one that always got in trouble. And she says that she remembers off camera that he was beaten so bad that there was one time where he had a bloody nose. There was also one time...
Okay, that's too much.
Yes. So there was also one time where she had to help him clean the walls because there was blood on the walls.
Mm.
And that's how bad he would get beaten. And Sherry had to see it.
Blood on the walls?
Mm-hmm. That's what Sherry states in the documentary.
Crazy.
Yeah. Sherry states that there was just blood on the walls and she went to go help him. Yeah.
Dang.
So that's a little bit of what happened off camera. We didn't see any of that on camera. That shows a little bit of, Ruby's personality. So after the cancellation, like I said, she became like this whole new person. She was very religious and all this stuff, right? She joined Jodi's connection group. So after the cancellation of her YouTube channel, it's still going on. It's just she's not known as the best mom anymore, right? But she's still doing the videos. So she joins Jodi's connection group because now she's a big fan of Jodi because of how, she's trying to changing Chad.
Yeah.
So she's a big fan. So to join these groups, the connection group for Jodi or under Jodi, it's going to be $4,995 per person. Now, I believe
Wait, how much?
$4,995 per person.
5,000 basically.
Basically 5,000. But I believe it's for a certain amount of like.
It's like a year or 6 months or something.
No. Like maybe a few days.
Are you kidding me?
And people would join. But most of these people were like high-end people.
Okay.
They
wanted that's chump change.
So what?
That's chump change. Like,
oh yes.
Like that's like,
yeah. So, but these people, I was like, what'd you say? I thought you were talking. I don't know why I thought you said something about SpongeBob or like the chum
bucket.
Yeah, the chum bucket. I was like, what? Anyway.
Like, huh?
It was basically $5,000 per person. There was another one where it's 18 weeks of training, and that one was 14,985.
How many weeks?
18 weeks.
Oh my god.
For 14,000. Well, 15,000 basically.
Dang.
Yeah. So this girl was making money. This was all going to her because this is her connection group. This is her
That's
thing.
like half of a down payment on a house.
Yeah. And I'll tell you, like, her house was humongous. Humongous, beautiful house in the middle of nowhere. It was just beautiful in Utah. Jodi.
Or who? Yeah,
Jodi. Yeah. Jodi. She had a beautiful house. And yeah, so I'll talk a little bit more about her house later, but yeah, she had a beautiful house. So she was making bank.
Yeah.
She was making money, right? So yeah, so these connection groups involved mostly women. There was mostly women groups in this in the connection groups, but there were also men. There were also men groups as well. So what she talks about in these groups, in the women's group, she would talk about how to be, a good wife, how to be a good woman, all this stuff, right? In the men's group, she'll talk about how to be a good man, how to be a good husband, right? Mm. So that's how to be a good dad as well, and how to be a good mom. So that's what she would talk about in these groups, right? But there was one time, Kevin, remember the husband of Ruby, Kevin went with Ruby to one of the connections group for the women's group, but just because she wanted to see what it was about,
He wanted to see what it was.
Well, no, Ruby wanted to see what it was about.
She went to his.
Invited and she invited Kevin with her. I mean, Ruby to go to the women's group.
Yeah.
So Kevin went along. He was the only man in the room, obviously, but he went. And he says that he remembers that the only thing that we're talking about, Jodi was just bashing on men. Like, if it was, she hated men, right?
Oh my
And he felt so weird and felt so awkward. And all the women were like, basically laughing at him because they're like, you listening, basically? So he was like, I didn't know what to do and I didn't know how to react. But she was just bashing on men.
These are our teachers. Look at him.
Right? And so it was a lot. It was a lot for him, and it made him feel kind of uncomfortable. So after that, he decided, okay, well, let's see what the men's group is about.
Yeah.
So he ended up joining the men's group.
Oh my goodness.
As soon as he joined the men's group, she was talking about, beautifully about, women. Everything was fine. Everything was good. She was stating, like, basically, she kind of pointed him out. But Jodi pointed Kevin out and said, you gotta be like Kevin. Kevin is a good husband. He does so much for Ruby.
He's subordinate, right? That's what it means. Yeah. Subordinate. He was subordinate.
Yeah, but...
A man shouldn't be that subordinate, though.
No. Okay,
we could see why,
Yes, but Jodi doesn't know this. Jodi was saying that Kevin was a good man to Ruby because he respected her.
Oh, okay.
Because he was by her side.
Okay.
And that he never disobeyed her, basically. In a sense.
In a disrespectful way.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So that's what Ruby was saying. So that's what Jodi was saying in the connection groups and what she was talking about. And she was kind of praising Kevin. And Kevin kind of felt good about this because Kevin never felt good enough. Right? And so Kevin was like, oh my God, like, I'm going to continue going to these groups, right? Because I felt good. Like, this felt good. Yeah. Now he's starting to be manipulated, right? And so now Ruby is going to the connections group for women. now Kevin's going to the connections group for men, and they both got like so into it to the point where they became even speakers in the connection group, and now they're working with Jodi. So they became very known in the connection group, not like even in the world, but now in that little, group or conference, workshops, whatever, right? So this was and I didn't mention this before, but LDS people that were in that religion, Mormons were in that religion.
Oh, yeah.
So that's what she kind of more praised about. She kind of talked about that specifically.
Mm-hmm.
So anybody that was Mormon were in these groups, in this workshop.
Okay.
All right. So after that, after they became in the groups, Kevin and Ruby, they started changing. So they started becoming different. So Kevin kind of talks about it in the documentary. He was like, I saw, like, the way Ruby would look at me was the way I wanted her to look at me all these years. She supposedly looked at him like if he was the most handsome, the most hottest man in the world. She was just like, hey, Kevin, like, how are you? Like,
it's because that's what a man's supposed to be. Like, you're supposed to be like somebody, your woman looks up to, not a guy that is controlled, you know what I mean? Yeah,
so that's what he felt, and so he's never felt that. He's always been owned, quote unquote, by Ruby, and now Ruby is like, you tell me what to do, or
this is a man.
Yes. So that's what he was just so excited, and he was like, I'm gonna continue like going to these groups because Ruby looked at me in a different way. Right?
These people.
And so he continued, doing his thing and, being the man that he's always wanted to be. And Ruby...
It's good for him, though, kind of.
Yeah, kind of. Ruby ended up changing because she stopped yelling at the kids. She became more flexible. She became not so picture perfect. She was just like, let's just do, our thing. Let's just live life, whatever.
It's starting to sound good, isn't it?
Yes, that's the way she manipulates you, and I'll show you why. But anyways, so everything is starting to become picture perfect. It's starting to fall into place.
Reputation.
Yeah, and so Chad and Sherry talks about this in the documentary. They were like, yeah, my parents changed. Like, they became, like, we at that moment, at that time, for a few months, it was the best months of our lives. Like, it was so much better than it was before. And that it had ever, like, was at any moment of our lives with her. And it was something that they think about a lot. And so they were really happy. They were like, oh my God, this is working. Jodi's doing a really good job. Jodi's a really good counselor, all this stuff, right? This is when things changed. Ruby started doing little videos with Jodi, right? Because Ruby is not a part of working with Jodi with the connection. So Ruby started doing videos with Jodi and started like involving herself with it more. And then she ended up changing the YouTube channel's name from 8 Passengers to Moms of Truth. She invited basically everybody in the neighborhood to join the Moms of Truth on Facebook, because she's now making her little group as well. So that's all the changes that's going around with the family and the channel and with Jodi. So all of them joined. They were like, oh my God, yes. Like, if Jodi is going to be involved and Ruby is now like, becoming this amazing person and she's really good speaker, like everybody is joining. Like literally the neighbors, they had them on the documentary and they talked about this. They were like, yeah, we all joined. We all joined this group. So then, the video started with Jodi, with Ruby, and they just sat down on the couch and they were just talking about, the same thing they would talk about in the groups: how to be the best woman, how to be the best wife, how to be the best mom. Really. And honestly, it was not just so much about the women. They were also talking about, the men, like how your man is supposed to treat you, how your husband's supposed to treat you, how a dad's supposed to be with their kids.
This was all good information.
For the most part, yes. Some things were kind of controversial.
Yeah.
So they would kind of state things like your husband cannot disagree with you, or you need to be painted as like the head of the house, like
The woman?
yes. So they kind of would say things that were a little bit controversial, but for them at that moment, they believed everything she said.
Yeah.
They believed everything she said, and there was times where like even they would say things about the kids, like the kids cannot disobey you. If they're disobeying you, they are basically sent from hell. You need to learn how to discipline them and how to get the demon out of them. That's how they would Jodi would talk, right?
Aye.
And you know, they would, like I said, they would add religion into this, so it was a lot of that.
You see, just for the audience, religion is completely different from relationship with God.
Yes.
Two different things.
Yeah. No, I mean, I don't know. It was just really weird the way she would talk about it and how she would bring religion into it. But like I said, it was mostly people that were in Mormon that were joining these groups. So they wanted to hear about God and they wanted to hear how this related to the Bible and how this related to God.
Because they were thinking if this comes from God, you know, this is how you're supposed to
Yes.
do it.
And so
That's the key foundation of why I don't like religion sometimes.
Yeah. So there was people that were even thinking that Jodi was even sent from God. Like Jodi was the person, basically kind of like, yes. So they thought that 100%. And so did Ruby and Kevin. They were like, no, she is sent from God.
No.
She's sent to us. She's sent here from God to help us and to save us.
Wait, Ruby believed that herself?
Ruby believed that Jodi.
Oh, you're talking about Jodi.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Ruby and Kevin believed that Jodi was sent from God to help them. But also Ruby and then you reminded me of something. Ruby did think that she was also sent from God to help people as well.
Mm-hmm.
Mostly with her YouTube channel. She was like, this is like me.
Maybe she was, maybe.
Right? No,
but
don't say that because
maybe she wasn't, she turned it.
Yes.
She made it selfish about herself and this and that.
So that was like around 2019 is when everything, you know, came together. They joined the connection group and everything like that, right? You remember what happened? The whole virus was going around. The whole virus was going around, you know, 2020. And they thought, Ruby, Jodi, Kevin, thought the world is ending. This is the moment that Jesus is going to come down and save us. Because
there was a lot of evangelism.
There was a lot of things going on during 2020. So what they did is they prepared food. So in Jodi's home, she has like this big closet, like not like like a pantry. Yes, she has this biggest pantry in the world. It's kind of like when they have not literally, but that's being exaggerated. It's huge. So you can go in. It's a walk-in pantry, and it's like there's a bunch of shelves, and you know they basically stock that whole closet up with canned food, a lot of stuff, just to be prepared for the moment that Christ comes down. So Jodi was now like, you know, super excited that, you know, Ruby was involved and helping Jodi out, and they were just like a team now. They were best friends. Jodi and Ruby were best friends. And Kevin was kind of like a third wheel in a way in this little friendship. It felt weird for him, but, you know, they just, you know, got along really well. Mm-hmm. I'll tell you a little bit of that, but why I say that. But anyways, continue.
The little whole affair.
Hold on. So one day, you know, Ruby and Kevin were at their house, and Jodi stays in her home. So this home is, like I said, so beautiful. It's huge. It seems like, from what Chad explained, it seems like it's like multiple people live in this home, but it's just her. So one day, Jodi calls Kevin and Ruby. And she's like, oh my God, she's crying. She's crying, and they're like, what's wrong? What's wrong? And Jodi goes, oh my God, Satan is in my house. Make that reaction one more time. So she goes, Satan is in my house. And they're like, what do you mean? And basically what she said was she had woken up and she had saw this odd, like, weird thing at the edge of her bed, and she seemed really scared. So they were like, okay, well, we're coming down. So they went down to her house and they spent the night there. So while spending the night, they heard a loud crash in the basement. Now, when you go down to the basement, it's literally just concrete walls and it's so empty. There's nothing there to fall. So what they stated is that they heard a loud crash in the basement in Jodi's house. And that's when Jodi was like, you see, like, something is in here. Something is trying to get me because I'm sent from God and Satan wants to take me away. Because this is the moment when the world is ending and Christ is coming down. But the devil does not want me here. He wants to take me for his own. So that's what she stated, what the reason was, what all these things were happening. And supposedly none of this was happening before. And so in the documentary, they asked Kevin, did you really believe this? And he was like, I did. And then they were like, well, do you think that she was just lying or playing around or messing around? And he was like, no, I honestly think that she was being honest. Like, this was real. And there was another time when on the window. So to go outside, there's like this revolving door where it's like a window. And supposedly one day they saw a handprint on there. But the handprint was too big to be a human handprint. They supposedly saw fingers as long, like basically this long, in the hand. So to me, the first thing that I thought of, I was like, somebody probably just dragged their fingers down and then, put their hand down. But supposedly he had a picture of it. I couldn't see it on the documentary. They showed it, but they showed the picture, but I couldn't really tell that that's what it was. It just looked like the palm. It didn't look like there was any fingers, but maybe I just couldn't see it well. But he was like, yeah, he was like, that was just really creepy. It was just really weird. And that's when they were like, okay, well, you think she did this? And he was like, no, that was something in the house. But personally, I think that this was her plan. Because after all of this happened, they come together, Jodi, Ruby, and Kevin come together. And Jodi is like, I can't live here. I cannot live here. I cannot live another day in this house because there's just too much going on. Can I stay at your guys' house? So Ruby, like, praising her and thinking that she's like sent from God, she was like, yes, you could definitely stay at our house.
I mean,
Kevin agreed. Yeah.
That's normal.
But we'll see why I think this was her plan. I'll tell you
Jodi's plan.
Jodi's plan. I think Jodi was doing all of this. But that was my opinion, right? And that's not a fact. That's alleged. I think that she did this. So, so Ruby was like, yeah, of course you can come stay with us. So at that time, Sherry, the oldest daughter, she was already going to leave the house to go to college.
Mm-hmm.
So she was going to start packing her stuff, but she hadn't packed yet. It was already going to be, I think in 2 weeks, she was going to leave. Or a week or something like that. And Ruby goes to Sherry, you need to take out your stuff like now. Because Jodi is moving in and she's going to be staying in your room. And she's like, oh, okay. So she does it. I mean, she has no choice. And she goes and takes her stuff out. And now Jodi is living with Ruby and Kevin and the 6 kids.
So where does Sherry sleep, do you know?
She would sleep on the couch. Sherry would sleep on the couch. But she wasn't going to be there for long. Right? So Sherry kind of, in the very beginning, she kind of already felt a little bit weird about Jodi. She said as soon as she saw Jodi in pictures when she first, came around, she seemed very odd, scary looking to her. Jodi, if you see a picture of her, she looks like a very manly woman. And that's very respectfully That's not me just being disrespectful, but she looks like a very like manly woman. Like she doesn't look, she doesn't look like for me an example.
She looked like Fiona.
No, for me an example. Like I'm very like girly. I'm very like delicate. And Jodi, she's very like she looks tough, not physically, not just physically, but like she looks tough. She looks like nobody can get in her way.
Yeah.
And she doesn't look like a girly girl. She looks like more like if I guess if you want to put a title on it, she looks like more like a tomboy, like manly looking, right?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, so Sherry was just like, yeah, this lady seems a little bit weird, right? So Sherry would always kind of tell Ruby, hey, like, are you sure Jodi's a psychologist? Like, is she like, because she would praise to be a psychologist. And Sherry was like, I looked her up and she had a lot of things going on. And supposedly, when Sherry looked her up, at that time, Jodi was not a psychologist. She had gotten her license taken away a long time ago because she had lied to people and made people, and there was a lot of controversies against her. She was on probation for 18 months. So there was something already going on with Jodi that Ruby and Kevin did not know, and Sherry was trying to warn them. And Ruby was like, Sherry, you're just wanting to ruin this moment for me or moment for us. Like, get out of it. Right? So Sherry had written a book about her whole life with Ruby, with her mom. She states Ruby as Ruby. She does not state her as her mom. She says Ruby the whole entire time, right? The book is called The House of My Mother. So she talks about this moment and she talks about all of this that's going on in this moment where she like has to move all her stuff from her room, and that Jodi is now like involved in the house and now lives in the house and involved with the family. So there's a lot of weird things that start happening when Jodi, joins the family and lives in the house. So I'm going to go back to the book. I brought that up for a reason, but I'm going to go back to the book in a bit. I'm going to talk about this moment when Jodi now, she is living in the house and supposedly now she's possessed. So in the documentary, Kevin talks about this moment that Ruby is trying to calm her down. She places her hand on Jodi's head, and Jodi is literally like, you see in the video, she's shaking. She's like saying things. She's saying the most craziest things. Like, I forgot what she said. I didn't even write it down, but she would say things like, "Oh, I'm gonna get her," or "She's mine." She's mine. That's what she says. So Jodi says she's mine, but it's like if she's saying it in the devil's voice or in the demon's voice that she's possessed with. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So it's now not Jodi, it's the demon that's possessing her, that's talking, that's saying these things, right? So Kevin and Ruby are trying to calm Jodi down, trying to get this demon, quote unquote demon, out of Jodi, which I think is all fake, but that Kevin was like, that was real. She was possessed. And so yeah, so that's what happened. And Sherry knew that something was going on with Jodi. Sherry was like, no, she is messing around and my family is in danger because this is not okay. This is not normal. So yeah. So Sherry is now out of the house. So it's now Chad and the 5 other kids. No, sorry, the 4 other kids. And Kevin, Ruby, and Jodi. Right?
5 other kids, no?
4.
Sherry
is
6.
included 6.
So
Chad
it's 5.
and 4 other kids.
Oh. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So yeah, so Ruby believed that Jodi was meant to be in this home so that she could help her out of this. So Ruby was like, this is our moment. This is our moment to help Jodi, to get her out of this. God chose us. God chose us to help her out of this situation. They ended up having an exorcist. They ended up doing a whole bunch of things to get the demon out of Jodi. And Kevin explains she would, because he would read things from the Bible and say all the names from the Bible to Jodi one day, and one day he was doing that, and Jodi was hissing, yelling, crying, like as if in the movies, like the scary movies, where they're doing The Exorcist, and then they're like reading something from the Bible or a script from the Bible, and then they start like screaming, or it's like something that like they start getting hurt. Does that make sense? They start hurting, they start feeling pain because of them saying these things.
Yeah, what I know of it, demons and all this stuff, they know scripture, and they use scripture to their advantage to manipulate you.
I know that, but what I'm saying is that in the movies when they do The Exorcist and they call that, and they start yelling and they're like crying.
Going crazy.
Well, what I'm saying is that I'm painting you the picture of how it was with them.
Mm.
Okay, so Jodi was crying, yelling, hissing, doing all this stuff when Kevin was reading, the Bible. So yeah, this is when the connections group started changing. So Jodi at this time was still doing the connections group, the workshops. But she would not have her camera anymore. She would not have her camera on anymore because of all the things that was going on. So she looked horrific, I guess. And so, but then at this time, Jodi started attacking Kevin. And that he needed to step up his game as a husband, that he needed to be a better man, all this stuff, making him look bad, right? And all the neighbors that were living around them, they were also involved in these connections group, and they talked about in the documentary, they were like, yeah, it was the most awkwardest moment because all she was talking about was Kevin. That he was just this horrible man, and that you need to not be like Kevin. What did he do? This is why, this was the moment where I think this is why she did all of this. Her plan was coming together. Does that make sense? So she was kind of, in a way, pushing Kevin away. She was trying to push Kevin away from whatever relationship Jodi and Ruby was having. She did not want Kevin involved in their relationship. Now, when I say, yes. So when I say relationship, so there was a lot of weird things going on between Jodi and Ruby. So one day Sherry had went to visit the house. So at this time, it's already been months that Jodi has been living with
college.
Yeah. So at this point, Jodi has been living with Ruby and Kevin for months now. And one day Sherry, comes to visit because she wanted to go see the family. During the day, she went upstairs to her room where Jodi is staying, and she wanted to go grab something from her room. When she goes to the room, the first thing that she sees was candles everywhere. There was massage oils on the dresser, and it just felt weird. It seemed really dark and dim. She said it just felt weird, and she wanted to grab whatever she needed and get out. And it felt odd to her because she's like, why is there massage oils? Like, what is going on here?
They're essential oils.
No, they're massage oils. Massage oils. Not just smuggle.
I was thinking about like, the witchcraft stuff.
No, massage oils. Like oils to put on your body.
What the
Yes.
hell?
So, hold on. Give me 1 second. Let me explain why. So it seems really weird, right? And it's starting to make her overthink the relationship between her mom, Ruby, Sherry, her mom, Ruby, and Jodi. Because at this point, Jodi went from sleeping with Kevin in the room to now sleeping. I'm sorry, Ruby.
Oh,
sorry. Yes. Thank you for correcting me. But Ruby went from sleeping with Kevin in their room. Obviously, that's their room. To now sleeping with Jodi because she stated to Kevin, I need to sleep with her to make sure she's okay in the middle of the night. So she would do that, right? That's when Kevin started. Yes,
what?
That's when Kevin started feeling a little bit weird. He's like, "Why? You're spending a lot of time with Jodi now." So yeah. So anyways, so that night that Sherry, went to the room, grabbed her stuff, and she felt really odd and weird and saw all the stuff. That night around 5 a.m. ish, she heard footsteps upstairs. So she goes to peek, at the stairs, and she goes to peek and she sees Ruby. Sherry sees Ruby leaving Sherry's room, which is Jodi's room, leaving Jodi's room with her hair all messy, cheeks all pink, her cheeks all pink and red, and she's like smiling. She's kind of like smirking. Oh, and then she has like her robe all tied up or whatever, and she's walking to her room with Kevin. So that's when So that's when Sherry was like, I don't want to know. I don't know what happened. It just seemed more than they were just friends. It seemed more that they were like being physical with each other.
Oh, heck no.
So that was the only thing that, that Sherry saw about that situation. Later on, there's kind of proof that they did have a relationship and they were being physical with each other. But we'll talk about that later, and Sherry does figure this out on her own. But I'll tell you that later. Okay, so by July 2027, 27. By July 2022, Chad was now kicked out of the house. So one day, Chad,
oh,
the older brother, the older son.
Yeah.
So he was now kicked out of the house because he was forced by Jodi to tell Ruby that while Jodi has been living in the home, he has been watching porn, I guess we can call it, and also been going out and making out with girls in the middle of the night and doing all this stuff that he's not supposed to do.
So he gets kicked out of the house?
Because the religion does not allow that.
How old is that boy? That boy's probably like 17.
He's 17 years old.
I knew it.
He is 17 years old and he gets kicked out of the house for that reason. Ruby gets really upset, and Chad talks about this in the documentary, that she seems at first sad because she's like, why would you do this? Basically just sad at the situation that Chad would be doing these things behind her back. And then she starts getting mad. And she states she blamed Chad that he was causing, because she kind of like, for some reason, and Chad talks about this in the documentary, that moment he sees when she changes. So she goes from being sad to then being really mad, and it clicks her like in her head, and she's like, you were the one that was causing the possessions. You were the reason why Jodi was being possessed by this demon, because you were doing things behind our back. So you gotta go.
There's one thing. It's a little bit. It's kind of true, but only within a holy space. I understand why she's saying that. Because the Israelites back in the days, they had no impurities. And if there was any little bit of impurity, that had to be sent out of the tribe. And then until they were clean, they could come back in the tribe.
Yeah.
But this is talking about a place where God dwelled. And there cannot be no sin, not for God's sake or not for anything else. It's for the sake of the people so they don't die. Because God's power is so strong that it kills sin, and if it kills sin within you, it'll maybe even harm you. That's my understanding of it. I might be wrong, but I understand why she did that. But that's not a holy place. Well,
it's holy to her because Jodi's in it.
Jodi
is sent from God.
I don't know.
So Chad was Chad was kicked out for that reason, and now as soon as, and there's a clip on this of this moment, because I don't know if Ruby was recording it or what, but it was recorded. But Chad is getting kicked out. Chad was like, okay, yeah. He's like, I am the cause of it. He started believing it. He's manipulated. And he was like, yeah, I am the cause and I gotta go. So he ends up packing his stuff and he's starting to leave. And then that's when Kevin comes home from work. So Kevin sees that Chad is starting to pack up his stuff. So he's like, what the heck is going on? As soon as he walks into the door, he sees Ruby, right? Ruby goes, you have been horrible in our relationship. You're not a good husband. We don't have a good marriage at all. I need you to leave. You need space, and you need some time to work on yourself. Once you leave, you're no longer in contact with any of our kids or me or Jodi. No contact at all.
Just when he gets home?
As soon as he gets home.
Oh,
And he's like,
no.
what the heck? But like I said, like how Kevin is, he obeyed and he left. And he remembers this moment like having to hug his kids, and this was going to be the last time that he was going to see his kids forever. He doesn't even know how long. It's until Ruby is like, okay, you can come back. Until he gets to prove himself that he is able to come back and be a good husband and a good dad to the kids, that's when he can come back. But before that, he's not able to come back. And how is he going to show it? They can't even see each other. He can't even contact her. Can't even contact any of his kids. So he leaves. So now, I think this was a plan for Jodi, because she wanted to get rid of Chad and now Kevin, because she wanted to just be her, Jodi, and Ruby, and the 4 kids now, the 4 younger kids in the house.
Sadly.
This is kind of when things started falling apart. So that day, Ruby decided to text Sherry. You know, Sherry, the oldest daughter.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why she decided to text Sherry was because Sherry was kind of, in Ruby's eyes, going against her and going against the family, and seemed like she didn't want to be a part of the family anymore. That's what Ruby stated. Well, Sherry had found out that Chad had moved out of the house. And now Chad is no longer a part, quote unquote, a part of the family anymore. So Sherry ends up finding out where he lives, and she goes to his house or his apartment, and Chad opens the door, and Chad doesn't seem really excited to see her. He's like, what are you doing here? And Sherry is like really excited. She's like, I get to see my brother. Like, she just loves her brother so much. And, Chad is like, what are you doing here? And Sherry's like, well, can you let me in? I brought you some snacks. Like, I brought you stuff. Like, I didn't know that you moved out. And Chad doesn't seem happy. And Sherry's like, what did Ruby do to you? Like, what's going on with Jodi? And that's when Chad is like, lashes off. Like, because like I said, he loves Jodi. He's starting to get manipulated by Jodi and Jodi and
Jodi.
Like as a mother.
Dang.
And he's starting to get manipulated by Jodi and Ruby. He thinks that it was his fault for like all the possession. Like, he's starting to get manipulated.
Okay.
So he did not believe anything that Sherry was saying. Sherry was the only one that was not being manipulated. Sherry was like, no, you guys don't see what's going on? Like, they're manipulating us. Like, this is not okay. And Chad was like, no, Jodi and Ruby are helping me. Like, there was a reason why I needed to get out of the house. Like, they have a good reason. Like, they didn't do anything, right? And so Sherry was like, no, like, mom's abusive. Ruby's abusive. Like, you need to understand that she's manipulating you and all this stuff. And Chad was like, I need you to leave the house. So he kicks her out. And Sherry's all like upset. She's like, oh my God, like, I don't understand. Why doesn't he see it? Like, how does he not see it? So Sherry, at this moment, is now getting text messages. So after that, she goes home and she's getting text messages or calls, I'm sorry. She's getting calls from the insurance that she is now taken off from the car insurance from the family. Sherry is now taken off of the car insurance. So now she has to get her own car insurance. And she also got a call that she was also taken off of the health insurance from the family. Then she gets a text from her mom, Ruby. And Ruby is like, you seem like you don't want to be a part of the family anymore. You went to Chad's house. Chad told the mom. So Ruby goes, you seem like you don't want to be a part of the family anymore. You're just going against me. You're telling Chad that I'm over here abusing you guys. Like, you don't understand that all of this is meant to happen. You guys need to, listen and obey to your mom and all that stuff, right? She asked Ruby, like, if you're going to disown me, then I need my car title.
Yeah.
So that I can get my insurance.
Documentations and everything.
So I can get my own insurance for my car.
Her social security, her birth
Yes,
certificate.
all of it. So she's like, okay, I'm going to leave it with the next door neighbor. So now the next door neighbor, she texts her and she's like, hey, can you just leave it in the mailbox? I'm just going to grab it and pick it up and leave. And the next door neighbor's like, no, I'm not going to just leave it in the mailbox. This is like important information.
Yeah,
like,
makes sense.
just come by whenever you can. Mm-hmm. But at that moment, she really needed it. She goes to the house that day. She finds time. She goes to the neighbor, but she asks one of the other neighbors. Her name was Tessa, I think. She asked her, hey, can you come with me? I can't just go by myself. I'm really scared. Like, it just makes me nervous. I don't know what's going on.
To go to that house?
To go to the neighbor's house to get her papers.
Is it a guy or what?
It's a woman. But they're really close to Ruby. So she's like, I don't know what's going on. And the fact that, Ruby is going to the neighbors to give her the papers, why can't Ruby give her the papers? Mm-hmm. So she just finds it weird. So she asked the neighbor, that the more nicer neighbor, I guess you can call her, to come with her. And she's like, yeah, I'll go with you. So at that time, the neighbors are starting to speculate of what is going on in the house.
Something's going on.
So that lady was feeling like, yeah, there's something going on. Obviously she doesn't seem okay. So I'm going to join her. She talks about this in the documentary. She goes to the house. As soon as she opens the door, the neighbor opens the door, but then Ruby's behind her. So Ruby's in the house. Ruby's in the house as well with the neighbor. When she opens the door, the neighbor's at the front of the door, and Ruby's behind the neighbor. Basically, they're talking, and now Ruby is starting to jump in, and she's like, well, you didn't want to be a part of this family, and all this stuff. She's just saying all this about Sherry, and Sherry is like, Mom, like, what is going on? Like, I don't understand. Like, can you just give me my papers? Like, she did not give her papers until she said what she had to say, Ruby. She wanted to say whatever she had to say that came to her mind, that she was basically this
Ruby
person.
was being manipulated, though.
She was, but at the end of the day, without Jodi, she was still not a good mom.
Well, it started seeming like she was starting to become a good mom.
Yes, but that was the way.
You gotta keep in mind, this is it was a licensed therapist that she knows how to manipulate people.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. So, I'll get to it. as to why I don't think that she was just fully manipulated. I think she had some sort of, what is it called? Part in the things that she did. But anyways, let me continue. So yeah, so she just started crying. The neighbor that went with Sherry to go to this house, she goes, can you just give her the papers, Ruby? Like, just give her the papers. And Ruby just gives her the papers after that. And Sherry leaves, and that was the last time that she saw her mother. That was the last interaction that she had with her mom. So now we're going to get to what happened to the 4 kids in the house that were left there. So everyone started noticing that Ruby was acting a little bit weird. The neighbors started realizing that she would be gone for five days straight, and the kids are in the house by themselves. So still, leaving them in the house by themselves is a little bit not okay. Like, it doesn't seem like they should be left alone.
No, they shouldn't at all.
Sorry, they were ranged from 9 to 15, around those ages. They were scared for the kids. They were scared for what's going to happen to the kids and why they were being left alone by themselves. And they just remember the neighbors talking about this moment. And they just remember seeing the kids, like, looking out the window. Like, they were not able to leave the house. They were not able to go outside. They were always just looking out the window.
And for 5 days.
They're 5 days straight. But even when they were there, they were not able to get out of the house. They were just always in the house, right? So Chad was still doing the meetings with Jodi. Chad was still doing their one-on-ones every week. And Kevin still joined the connection group calls, and by this point, it just still felt weird. It still felt like he was being attacked. It didn't feel the same anymore, and he felt very distant from Jodi now, Kevin. When Sherry found out, Sherry's oldest daughter, remember? Sherry found out that the kids were being left alone by the neighbors. So Sherry was like, oh no, like, this is not okay. Sherry called the cops. Sherry called the cops and told them, my siblings are at the house. I just want you to just go see if they're okay. Because she's starting to, like, she's only thinking about her siblings. And because she already knows that they're manipulating the other kids. So she's like, she's probably doing something to my siblings, or something is going on, or they're going to be traumatized or something. So she's worried about her younger siblings, the 4 younger siblings. So she calls the cops. They can't go inside because they don't have a warrant. So they just try to knock on the door, but the kids were told not to open the door for nobody. For nobody. So they don't open the door. They don't open the door. They look through the window. They said that everything looks normal. Everything looks fine. So they weren't able to open a case or anything like that, because Sherry ended up telling the police everything that went on and everything that's going on that possibly is going on with the kids. So there was no evidence of harm. There was no evidence of anything going on in the house. Because they would look through the window, they wouldn't see anything. They would see the kids, but they would look fine. Like, they weren't able to do nothing.
What about Child Protective Services?
I don't know if they needed proof. I'm assuming they needed proof in order to be able to check on the kids or take the kids. So they just didn't have no proof of the kids being malnourished or anything like that. They just couldn't say anything for whatever reason. But even though, like, they're underage and they're being left at the house alone, I don't know, but they weren't able to do anything. Sherry had gotten a phone call from the cops, and they said that we can't do anything. There's something that we can do.
Yeah.
There's no evidence.
Because, like, I used to stay at the house because my mom was a single mom, and sometimes I had to stay after school, and I would stay for a little bit while she comes from work. And I had to take care of my little siblings. I mean, I think that's kind of normal, but, like, days on out? No, that's too much.
I don't know, but, I mean, the cops couldn't do anything at that point. But anyways, that happened. And so Ruby ended up finding out that Sherry did this. And Ruby was not happy about it. 3 months later, Ruby decided to move in with Jodi. With the kids. So she decided to move all the kids and herself from their house, from Ruby's house, to Jodi's house now.
Are they still doing YouTube?
This was
at this point.
At this point, yeah, they're still doing videos. Like, the YouTube channel is not doing as well. She's more focused on the videos that she does with Ruby, that she does with Jodi, the connection groups, right? So yeah, so now this is where she moves. She takes all the stuff and she puts the house for sale. And this was on August 30th, 2023, 3 months later, on a Wednesday. I'm going to paint you the picture of what happened. So they already moved. It's already been a few months since they moved from Ruby's house to now Jodi's house, right? So now they're living there, the 4 kids and Ruby and Jodi. So I'm going to paint you the picture of what happened on this day, on August 30th, 2023, on a Wednesday. In the early morning, not too early, but this kid ends up going to a neighbor's house. This random kid. He goes and he rings the doorbell, and nobody answers. So he starts walking away. And then the door, you can hear the door just, unlocking. And this man opens the door, and he goes,
"Yes.
Hi, I was just wondering if you could do 2 favors. And the neighbor is like, well, what are they? And the kid goes,
Taking me to the nearest police station."
And the neighbor goes, what's going on? Have a seat. And there's chairs right there outside of his door. And he tells him to have a seat. He points at the chairs. And the kid goes, it's just personal business. And then the neighbor goes, well, have a seat. Let's talk about it. But he ends up explaining everything that went down. But this man, the neighbor, he sees the kid. He's so malnourished. He has duct tape on his ankles. He's hungry. and he's thirsty. He's literally skin and bone. Like, when you see him walk up the door, his legs, so skinny. They're so skinny when you see him walking up to the door. And it was just really sad. And he calls the cops. And the wife comes out because she's like, what's going on? And she sees the kid. She's like, we have to do something. We need to call the cops. So they call the cops. And the neighbor on the phone, the man that was talking to the kid, the one that opened the door, when he was talking to the cops, you can see this in the video, he's talking to the cops. And he says he's so malnourished, he's so hungry, and he starts crying. Because he's like, I don't know what's going on. I don't know what happened, but this kid, he does not look okay. Cops start showing up. They show up to the house. And they knock on the door. And Jodi opens the door. And they go, are you Jodi Hildebrandt? And she goes, yes. And she's on the phone. And then he's like, I need you to step out. And she's like, I'm on the phone with my attorney. And he's like, well, I need you to step out. And so he grabs her and he pulls her out. And she's like, don't you need a word to be in my house? And he's like, at this point, no, we don't need a word.
Jodi, I need you to step out.
I have my attorney.
That's great. Step out of the house.
No, I'm not going to step out of the
Step
house.
out of the house. Step out of the house.
Whoa.
We're just gonna see. Is there anybody else home?
Wait a minute, how do you come to my house?
Right there.
They come into my house.
Just have a seat right there.
Do you have a search warrant?
Have a seat right there.
Do you have a search warrant?
Have a seat right there.
So they walk in. They walk in and they go and they search around the whole house. Now at this point we don't see Ruby. So there's the body cams. They're going around the house and they go downstairs. They go into they see this safe, right? This big safe, and it has like this little big turning wheel thingy, basically to open it, right? And then a little combination code up at the top. And they go and they ask her, what's the code to the safe? She's like, I don't remember. And then he's like, the cop's like, you don't remember the code to your safe? She's like, no. The cop was like, okay, you know what? I'm just gonna try a code. I'm gonna try 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It worked. So he was like, oh my god, it worked. So he opens the door. As soon as he goes in, it's literally just a room. It has a bed
it's a safe.
It's a safe, but it's a room.
Door.
It's a safe, but it's like
with
a big door.
It's a door. It's a safe door.
And you open it. And then there's like literally a small little room with a sink. I don't remember if it was a toilet, but there's a sink and there's a bed that can be like put up like against the wall to look like a wall, and then it can be brought down.
A jail.
Basically. In the little room, they find ropes in the trash. They find duct tape. They find a few things, right? So they keep searching. They're like, okay, this is not okay because something is going on. So they keep searching, and then they find a little girl in the upstairs bathroom in the closet. And she's sitting there, and they don't know if she's a little girl or she's a boy because her head is shaved off, like her hair. And so they go, hey, like, how are you? Like, are you okay? She doesn't say anything. She sits there in silence the whole entire time. She's scared. She's scared and she doesn't say anything. She's so skinny. She also has duct tape. It's like she's just sitting there. And they talk to her. They try to talk to her. They bring her food. They bring her a box of pizza, literally just a personal pizza, and a cup of a drink. And they offer it to her. They're like, eat, like you can eat. Everything is okay. We're here to help you. Don't be afraid of us. Like we're here to save you. Jodi's outside. They're talking to Jodi outside.
Freaking.
But Ruby is not. She's not.
Execution. Public execution.
Ruby is not. They haven't found her yet. And I'll tell you in a sec.
Oh my goodness.
But they bring her the food, they bring her the drink, and she doesn't want to drink. She doesn't want to eat for a good bit. And they sit with her, they talk to her, they make sure that she feels safe and she doesn't feel like, they're about to hurt her or take her or anything like that. So eventually she finds the comfort to open the box and she starts eating. And then she just sits there and they ask her like, hey, come on, like you can get out now. She does not get up. She's scared. She's scared and she doesn't want to make a mistake. She doesn't want to do anything.
You come in, my buddy. I'm a police officer. Are you going for the union here? Hey, you okay? Is this just you in here? I'm Sergeant Tobler. What's your name? I just have one.
Out of nowhere, Ruby shows up and she's now in the living room. How did she appear in the house? Or where was she?
She just shows up?
She just shows up. And they go into the house and they get her and they tell her.
She arrived in a car and went into the house, or
No.
she
They don't
just
even
appeared
know
in the
how.
house?
Yes. They don't even know how she got to the house. She just appeared.
And
That's
there
how they
was
say
a
it.
cops all over the house.
Yes. But that's how they say it, is that she appears out of
In
nowhere.
the living room. Bruja.
Yes. So they go into the room, I'm in the living room, and they're like, hey, Jodi, so you're
Bebe,
being arrested?
I low-key think, okay, I'm gonna say this real quick. I think she was possessed. The girl. You know why? My spirit is going crazy right now.
I'm going to tell you and I say, hold on. I'm about to give you another proof as to maybe she was possessed. I don't know. But anyway, so
I'm
goes.
scarred.
Wait. So,
Jesus Christ, be with us.
So she goes. Or stop, hold on. So they go in and they tell her, okay, Ruby, you're being arrested. You're being detained. And we're going to take you in for questioning. And so they ask her to get up. This whole entire time, she has a straight face. She don't say nothing to them. They tell her to turn around. She turns around. They turn her back around. They put her in handcuffs. They turn her back around and they tell her, okay, so you're being detained. They give her, the what do they call it? The
handcuffs. Oh,
the rights. They tell her
the Amanda rights.
Amanda rights. They tell her all of that. And they tell her that we're gonna take you. So they end up walking. You just see her. Literally, she's just looking at them with a straight face. She's not saying nothing. She's not smiling. She's just with a straight face.
Okay, just place your hand behind your back for me. Perfect. And then, right now, I can put a finger in each of these, okay? And I'm just going to double up those so they don't tighten up on you on the way out there.
So at this point, they only found 2 of the kids. The kid that escaped and went to the neighbor's house.
The one in the closet.
And the one in the closet. But they don't know where the other 2 are. So they start investigating. They start figuring out, okay, where are the other 2? Like, they're not in the house. We looked around the house. They have to be somewhere else. So they go to the Ruby's house, the house that the one before. So the kids that they found, there were the 2 younger kids. Now, the 2 older kids out of the 4 are nowhere to be found. The 2 younger kids are a boy and a girl, and the older ones from the 4 are 2 girls. So they're looking for the 2 girls, which they're around like 14, 13, 15, 14, 13, something around that age, right? So they go to the house, they find nothing. Then they ended up finding out, I think from a neighbor. I'm not 100% sure where they found out this information, but they ended up finding out that they were at a friend's house of Ruby's. So a Ruby's friend, they were at their house.
The 2 kids.
The 2 girls. The 2 older girls out of the 4. So they ended up going to the house. They found the address. They go to the house, and it's this lady named Pam. They go to the door, and they're like, "Hey, we're looking for Pam." And they're like, "Okay, yeah, that's me." And then she's like, "Okay." They're like, "Okay, so we're looking for the 2 older girls." They named their names, but I can't state it. So they're like, "We're looking for these two girls." First they name only one of them, but they have both in their house. So they go and they're like, "Yeah, they're here." And they're like, we need to see them." And they were like, well, why? The husband was there too. He seemed very, like, I guess scared. They both don't know what's going on. Pam and her husband don't know what's going on. They don't know about the situation. They don't know anything. They just know that they have the kids. Pam stated this later on when they took her, because they took her from the house. They handcuffed her because they needed to handcuff her. That's like, their protocol. And they take her to talk to her without her husband. And she states, Ruby called me because she said that she had an emergency, a family emergency, and she needed to go down to where her family was, and that if I could take the kids. This was not a odd thing, because the kids usually come to my house and help me clean. And then, we do things and stuff like that. We have fun. And so that day, she called me early in the morning. This was like around 12 when she called me. And I took the kids, and it was fine for me because I needed them to help me clean anyways, because I have people coming over at my house later on. And she's like, we spent the whole day together. We went to go get ice cream. We went, we had a good time together. And we came in the house, and then we started cleaning. Long story short, they ended up taking the kids from the house, and everything was fine. They ended up explaining the situation. And those kids were not malnourished. They did not look skinny. They didn't look like they were harmed. They looked perfectly fine. The only kids that were harmed were the younger two. So they, as soon as they found those kids, they went back to the house to investigate a little bit more. When they went around to look around Jodi's room, this is where Ruby's room. Ruby was sleeping with the son. Ruby was like, they were sleeping in the same room. So she was keeping an eye on the son, and Jodi was keeping an eye on the daughter. They go into Ruby's room. They see a bunch of duct tape. They see a bunch of like, the little, like, I guess, like, it looks like grease that they put on wounds. Yeah, they
Vaseline?
had it. No, it's like orange. It's like orangey red thing that they put on the wounds or something like that. They have that on the duct tape, but they also found a notebook where Ruby explained everything that they did to the kids. So it was like a little journal. So in this journal, it stated that she made the kids, or her and Jodi made the kids, manually do labor. So manual labor in the sun. They had them jump on the trampoline for hours. And they found this trampoline. There's just like little spot where the kids were jumping. They had them carry heavy weights up and down the stairs. This was all while they were starving. So they didn't have any energy at all. And she wrote this in the story. So, in the journal, Ruby, she states, she did the first set easily. So she's talking about the daughter. After 5 minutes of rest, she began whimpering. When she got to the bottom stair, she slipped, quote unquote slipped, that's what she put, and dropped the box. I'm assuming she was carrying a box. I put her in the dog wash and shaved her head. All because she slipped and she messed up. The reason why, and they stated this in the journal, the reason why Jodi and Ruby were making the two younger kids do this was because they both believe that the younger kids were possessed. That they needed to beat the demon out of them. And in the journal, in one section, they did state, or Ruby does state, that she will beat the demon out of them, even if it's till death. That's what she said. Ruby in her journal. So that was crazy to think that your younger kids are possessed and you need to do all of that to them. But anyways, so that was a little bit of a glimpse of what happened to them and what they went through. They had stated, either Jodi or Ruby, that they confessed. The kids confessed that they were possessed.
The kids confessed?
That they were possessed. That's why they believed for sure, 100%, Ruby and Jodi, that the kids were possessed, because they confessed to it. But Kevin later on states that Ruby told him this. Ruby told him what happened. She said she called him, supposedly, that day She called him and she said, "Hey, I need to confess to you about something." And he's like, "What is it?" This is the first time that she's ever spoken to Kevin in a very long time. So he was very excited. He's like, "Oh my God, my wife is calling me. Like, I'm finally like, being told to come back." But anyways, she calls him and she's like, "I need to confess to you about something." And he says, what's going on? Ruby goes, "The kids are possessed." And he's like, Kevin's like, "What do you mean they're possessed? How do you know they're possessed?" And Ruby goes, "They confessed to it. And so we've been trying to beat the demon out of them. So they're taking me to jail. I need you to go to the police department and take the kids. Pick up the kids." And
The two healthy ones.
yes. And she's like, Ruby's like, "And this is the way that you're going to prove to me that you're a good husband. So I need you to clear this out, clear my name, and pick up the kids. And this is the only way that you're going to be able to come back." And he goes, "Okay." And he runs. He runs to the police station and he goes to try to pick up the kids. Now, before I talk about that moment, I saw the video of the investigation of Ruby and Jodi. So with Ruby, she did not say one word. They would ask her questions, she would just be like, and she would look back and forth at the two investigators or the two people that are talking to her, and then she's just like, it was the most awkwardest video I've ever seen in my life. Because they're just like, "Okay, Ruby, so like, what made you do this? Or what was going on?" Or something like that, And she's just like that. And they're like, "Okay, well, we can wait all day if you don't want to talk." And she's like, it was really weird. All of a sudden, she goes, "I want an attorney." She said, "I'll wait for my attorney," or something like that. And so they're like, "Okay." And then they keep trying to ask her questions. She's like I said, "I'm waiting for my attorney." And they're like, "Okay, no more questions." So they left. They go to Jodi, and Jodi's like, "Oh, I was talking to my attorney, and he told me not to tell you guys anything." That she's like,
Jodi?
"I trust Jodi." She's like, "I trust my attorney. Why would my attorney say that? Like, you guys seem really nice people, but I'm not going to answer any questions because my attorney said not to." And they were like, "Well, that's understandable. He's doing his job. But if you, would like to say anything that involves in the situation," like just trying to convince her to make her say something. Because I guess that's what they do. They kind of like try to manipulate you in a way to get you to make you feel comfortable to be able to open up. So they try to do that, but Jodi's like, "No, like, you guys seem really nice," but she seems like supposedly scared, like she doesn't know what they're doing, or like she's trying to be like she doesn't know what's going on. So she's like, "No, I trust my attorney. Like, you guys seem really nice. You guys seem really nice, and I really want to talk to you guys. But it's just like, my attorney said no, and I shouldn't."
Manipulation.
Yes. So she was manipulating them, and the police officer says that. With Kevin, they call him in as well because he comes to pick up the girls, right? And so he goes and they also start investigating him. And they're like, "Hey, like, do you know what was going on in the house?" And he was like, "No, I haven't seen my kids for about a year and a half now. So I don't know what's going on. I don't know what happened. I have no idea." And so he was like, well, they were like, "So how did you know to come get your kids?" And then he was like, "Well, somebody had called me and told me, I just needed to pick up the kids because they have been picked up by the police." And they were like, "Well, who called you?" And then he was like, "I'd rather not say." But in the documentary, he states, "She did call me, but I wanted to save her. I wanted to protect her because I still thought that Ruby was a good person. Ruby was a good mom, so I did not want to throw her under the bus because I didn't know what was going on." So he protected her to the very end. Kevin protected Ruby to the very end. He was still very manipulated. He found out everything. They told them so the cops ended up telling Kevin, okay, this is what's going on with your kids. They were found malnourished. They were found with duct tape. They were found with rope and
bandages,
handcuffs,
blood.
bandages, everything, right? And he was like, what are you talking about? Why would my wife do that? Ruby would never do that. And they were like, well, we have pictures. Do you want to see them? And Kevin was like, I don't want to see them. And in the documentary, he stated, I didn't want to see the pictures because I didn't want it to be true. Because I believed in my heart Ruby would never do things like that. Right? And so, yes. So he found out everything, and he was still brainwashed and all of that, right? And so Chad, the way he found out was that he was told from someone at school that his mom was arrested because it was all over the news because Ruby was this big famous person, right? And so he didn't believe it either. He was like, no, this is not true. You guys are just like, you guys are just, crazy. My mom would never do that, all this stuff. And so he believed, for some reason, he believed that they were going to break out of jail. Jodi and Ruby were going to break out of jail, and they were going to walk with God in front of everyone. Because Chad believed that Jodi and Ruby was also sent from God. And they were here to save everybody. Chad was very manipulated as well. And so that was the first time he ended up reaching out to his dad in near over a year. And he met up with him at the house, at Ruby's house. And that's when the dad Kevin notices everything. Like, it's all messy. He didn't know that they moved out of the house. He thought this is what they were living in. One of the neighbors ended up coming by, and they're like, hey, like, Kevin, like, can I talk to you? And he was like, yeah. And so the neighbor was like, you know why it's messy, right? Oh no, Kevin was like, oh, I'm sorry for the mess, whatever. He's like, the neighbor's like, well, you know why it's messy? They were moving. They moved. And Kevin's like, what? And Kevin was like, what's going on? And so the neighbor sits them down, and they talked for 6 hours about everything. And that's when Kevin realized, we've been manipulated. Like, all of this was not real. She was trying to manipulate us. And so he goes to Chad. Kevin goes to Chad, and he's like, Chad, we've been manipulated this whole entire time. None of this is real. Your mom is crazy, basically. And Chad's like, what do you mean? And then the dad's like, yeah, you've been manipulated. And Chad just starts crying. So now 4 months later, on February 20th, 2024, this is just last year, in court, Jodi and Ruby pled guilty. They were guilty for 4 counts of aggravated child abuse, and they're up to 4 to 30 years in prison. They were sentenced up to 4 to 30 years in prison. So the minimum is 4 years. The maximum is 30. So Sherry and Chad could not look at Ruby this whole entire time. Like, she was there, and that was the first time they saw their mom in years. 2 years. That was the first time they saw their mom. And at that time, Sherry was already living with what's Jodi. It called? With no. Sherry was living with Kevin and Chad. They ended up coming together. They still didn't have the kids anymore. Kevin had to prove himself that he was a good father in order to, have possession of them. And so Sherry, Chad, and Kevin ended up going to court and seeing this whole thing. What about the
other 4 kids?
I just said they didn't have possession.
They had to prove themselves. Yeah, I thought he had to prove himself for the other 2. No, but those were older age.
So they went to court, and Sherry and Chad could not look at their mom in the eye. They did not want to see her at all, and she made a whole statement, basically stating that she took full responsibility. This is Ruby's statement. She took full responsibility for her action, made serious mistakes after believing harmful ideas and cutting off people who tried to help her. She was sorry for her kids, family, and community, and thanked who stepped in to protect her kids. That was Ruby's statement. Jodi's statement was she loves the kids and wants them to heal, and she hopes that they can move on and have good lives. Those are the statements that they stated in court. In the documentary, they asked Chad, they said, do you still love your mom? And he said, yeah, I still love my mom. Like, my mom is always going to be my mom. And they were like, okay, well, and Chad was like, she needs to stay in prison for as long as she needs to, because she needs to pay the prices for what she did. Because I honestly think that my mom did bad in my 2 younger siblings and what they suffered. That was not something that they had to go through. Sherry states that she would never talk to her mom ever again. Sherry is like, I don't ever want to talk to Ruby ever again. I don't ever want to see her. To me, it's just traumatizing. That
She's
wasn't
gonna
my
have to
mother.
learn to forgive. Not forget, but forgive, because you'll never heal from it.
Yeah, and then Kevin says something really odd to, like, in my eyes. He goes, and this is in the documentary.
Chad.
Kevin.
Then
this is a documentary. They ask him, do you still love her? And Kevin goes, definitely. I've always loved her. And the people recording are like, even though she abused the kids? And Kevin goes, oh yeah. That's what he said. He just says, oh yeah. And that to me was like, what the heck?
You
I
know
mean, I understand you love your wife, but still, like,
it's
crazy.
because once she gets out, if she gets out in 4 years, he's hoping,
she'll come back.
She'll come back to him.
Yeah, that's crazy to me. But yeah, and then there's a few facts that I wanted to add, but we're done with the story. There's just a few things that I wanted to add that I found out in Sherry's book. Sherry had stated that she went to the house after all of this. She had went to the house to pick up on, like, documents, things that, memories. And she goes into the house and she finds Ruby's laptop. Sherry does. And she's curious and she goes in, she logs in. She looks at her messages between her and Jodi, Ruby and Jodi. And this clarified all the speculations that she thought that, Jodi and Ruby had a intimate relationship. So she found, basically the messages were stating Ruby's frustration on Ruby pleasuring or being physical with Jodi, like giving so much and not receiving anything. Does that make sense?
Jodi.
So Ruby was giving a lot to Jodi,
and
Jodi was not giving back. So Ruby would go and pleasure Jodi as much as Jodi wanted, but Jodi would not go and pleasure Ruby. And so she was feeling really frustrated for that because she wanted to get pleasure too, right? So that's what she saw in the messages, what Sherry saw in the messages between Ruby and Jodi. And what caught Sherry's eye was that Ruby's not in control anymore. Now Jodi's in control. It's really weird. It just felt weird because her mom was always in control in situations and now Ruby's the one that's being controlled. So she just found that weird. And Kevin moved back into the home and he was able to gain custody of the kids.
Oh.
And they live together to this day. Chad,
that was just
Sherry,
last year.
It was just last year. Mm-hmm. Chad, Sherry, Kevin, and the 4 kids are now living together. So now it's a family of 7. And Ruby and Jodi are going to be in prison for, I hope, 30 years. I hope it's not just 4 or less.
4.
Or less than 30.
Mm-hmm.
They need to serve all the 30 years. They could have gone to death with those kids. Like, those kids could have died.
Yeah, those kids could have died.
So
I kind of do think it's crazy because the devil uses the weak for his kingdom, the vulnerable, and also, well, the weakness is ego. Ruby had ego. She used ego against her own self, and also Ruby had power, and that's who got the devil attacks the most.
Ruby and Jodi had power.
Yeah, they both had power. And he made a clear example of what he is capable of doing through them.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, they had a lot to do with it. And, you know, I tell you, religion is not the same thing as having a connection with God.
Yeah.
It's not. You have a connection with religion, their foundations.
Yeah. There was just a lot to go through. Having to read all of that, it was just, I feel like I can't breathe. I feel like it's just so much anxiety because, you know, the kids had to go through all of that and they couldn't even say nothing. They couldn't even protect themselves. So it's just,
Poor
it's so
kids.
devastating. But that's a story of Ruby Franke and the devil in her house, which is how the documentary stated. Ruby Franke and Jodi Hildebrandt and what they did to their kids or Ruby's kids.
I blame Jodi for all of it because it sounds like everything changed when Jodi came into the house.
Well, I feel like it was already bad, but Jodi kind of added more.
It was bad.
She added the spice.
Yeah, it was bad, but it wasn't like to the point where it's like, yo, custody, you know, take them away, you're going to jail.
Yeah.
But it was to a point where you're morally doing something wrong.
Exactly.
But, you know, towards the end, no, se pasaron.
Yeah. But I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Thank you for joining us for part 2 of Ruby Franke and the story of hers.
Leave a comment down below if you want to discuss anything or have any questions about anything. This is a very deep conversation. It might be triggering for some people. Feel free, you know, to reach out to the contacts down below if you see anything like this or if you are yourself living through this. But please share it to someone that needs to hear it. Like, comment, and subscribe.
And tune in for the next video. Bye.